Hello and good evening from me, Philippa Blackham, and another very warm welcome to everyone who's joined us here in the theatre of the Nehru Centre, the cultural wing of the Indian High Commission here in central London, and equally welcome to everyone who is joining us online for this third and final event in our series of wisdom conversations. Special welcome from everyone here at the Nehru Centre and from the Brahma Kumaris in the UK. It's a collaborative initiative between these two organisations. And we've been meeting over the summer. It feels like we're part of the family here now almost. It's been very special and warm, the hospitality, and that's one of the things that has made this event feel quite so special. But we've covered a range of topics over the summer. We've been looking at ancient wisdom of India and how that has filtered through into our lives here in Western society, drawing on that rich heritage. We've also been looking at the power of the feminine and why it's so important that we tap into some of those qualities of the feminine and why the world needs those qualities so urgently right now. So for this, our final session, we're looking very much to the future. We're looking to the future with hope and optimism. And we have this somewhat intriguing title of Ancient Future, Rising Humanity. Now, the rising humanity, I think everyone can understand. Humanity is going through a turbulent time, but within that turbulence are the seeds of newness and hope and vision for a transformed humanity. But ancient future, how is that possible? Well, I'll leave you to ponder that, but hopefully by the end of the evening, all will be made clear. So the excuse, if we needed one to get together over the summer, has been the celebration of two things. The 50th anniversary of the Brahma Kumaris here in the UK, which is a real milestone moment for this organisation that has been teaching meditation and bringing a yogic way of life to a new audience. And we've also been preparing for the celebrations to mark the 75th anniversary of Indian independence, which of course fell on Monday the 15th. So we're going to be discussing what India has become today. So before I introduce you to our guest speakers and panelists for this evening, let's just watch a video together which very much marks and celebrates all of the achievements of modern India.
गगन के छोड़ भारत ने भरी उड़ान है, अब आत्मनिर्भर भारत से दूर ना आसमान है। प्रगति और विकास का आनंदोत्सव है, आजादी का अमृत महोत्सव है, ये महोत्सव है नए भारत के निर्माण का, बलिदानों के सम्मान का, महिलाओं के उत्थान का, अब सर्व के कल्याण का, जन जन का उत्सव है, हर मन का उत्सव है, ये महोत्सव है, ये अमृत महोत्सव है। हर कदम आगे बढ़ाना है, एक नया सूरज उगाना है, हमने मन में ठाना है, स्वर्ग धरती पर ही बनाना है, नए संकल्पों का अवसर है, भारत माँ को नमन 100 है, जन जन का उत्सव है, हर मन का उत्सव है, ये महोत्सव है, ये महोत्सव है, ये महोत्सव है, ये महोत्सव है, ये अमृत महोत्सव है, ये महोत्सव है, ये महोत्सव है।
Sorry. So a very vibrant and energetic vision of the new India and the seeds of optimism looking forward to everything that is yet to come. And that film was made by our film department at the Brahma Kumaris headquarters in Mount Abu in Rajasthan, composed especially and created especially for the 75th anniversary. And some of the words there are very inspiring and uplifting, talking about the achievements of women, trying to bring welfare reform and trying to bring a new heaven to earth. So some lovely sentiments coming through in the song lyrics there. So our guides on our journey this evening on this topic, delighted to welcome back our two regulars who've become, I don't know, they're sort of the yin and the yang of this whole journey that we've been on. Amish Tripathi, of course, who is the director here at the Nehru Center, I'm sure known to all of you, but in case somebody tuning in online doesn't know Amish, he has won our hearts for the wisdom that he carries of ancient India and for the way in which he has been able to tell some of the best stories ever told, found in the Indian scriptures, and bring them to a whole new generation through his thrilling and best-selling novels that he has written with the Shiva trilogy, amongst others, becoming India's best-selling books in history. And he writes under the name of Amish, and he really has been a phenomenon in the publishing world, and we're absolutely delighted to have the benefit of his wisdom again this evening. Sister Jayanti, the additional administrative head of the Brahma Kumaris, I'm sure everyone here has met Sister Jayanti before in one way or another. She's been a very strong presence on national and the international stage, speaking a message of wisdom, a message of hope, a vision for the future, and a vision that very much depends upon the transformation of each individual. She is, of course, a spiritual teacher, teaching Raj Yoga meditation, and she's been doing that her entire adult life. She's also the Brahma Kumaris representative at the United Nations in Geneva, and a much sought-after speaker in many spheres and circles, and a tireless server for the upliftment of humanity. Joining them this evening, it's a real delight to have with us someone whose life story really wouldn't look too out of place alongside some of the superhero women characters in Amish's novels. She really is a little dynamo of energy and optimism, and showing a direction for how India can move forwards, embracing new ideas. So Pragnya Mohan was at school in 2012 when she watched Michael Phelps winning gold medal after gold medal at the Olympics, the 2012 Olympics, and she thought to herself, I can do that. And she set about becoming a swimmer and was massively successful and won many tournaments. She then left school in 2012 and took up her training to become a chartered accountant, which is very long and arduous training. And alongside doing that, she kept going with her swimming. And then to make things a bit more interesting, she decided to embrace two other disciplines of running and cycling, and hence became a triathlete. Her first international event was in 2014. In 2015, she was awarded the top award for sport in her native Gujarat. And then in 2016, she became the national champion in India for triathlon, a massive achievement. And then she went on to become the South Asian champion. And she's held that spot pretty much every year since. So she has become the preeminent woman triathlete for India and South Asia. And in 2019, she was the first triathlete to represent India in the Triathlon World Cup, which was held in Madrid, in Spain. So a huge honour. And of course, she comes to us this evening hot foot from the Commonwealth Games, where she was one of the team representing India. And for the first time, India was fielding a team in the triathlon. And she took part in the women's race and the mixed relay race and did incredibly well. She's a name to look out for. She's set her sights on the Olympics and the qualifying rounds of the Olympics, which will be happening next year. A real vision of inspiration. And I think this evening we're in for a real treat. So if I could invite you all, please, to join me up here on the stage and we can get stuck in. Thank you so much. You sit in that seat there. And Amish, you've got your spot at the end. So welcome, all three of you. Special welcome to you, Pragnya.
Thank you.
You look absolutely gorgeous in this outfit. This was made especially for Team India to come to the Commonwealth Games.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about it.
So it's the traditional wear that is called sherwani, and this was made for the opening ceremony for us at the games, so for each athlete, and it depicts, and it was unisex. It was the same for men and women. So that is a huge statement that as India is trying to put out to the world, because a lot of countries had different attires for men and women, and this was like the same thing for us. So, and it's traditional. It brings out the values that we get from India. So I think it's very special.
And it was made especially for you.
Yes.
And you get to keep it.
Yes.
So that's a fantastic memento.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you a bit more about the games in a moment. But I thought, Amish, we would begin with just a moment reflecting on this special week that we have been in, the week of the 75th anniversary of Indian independence. How have you observed that week being celebrated and marked both here and back in India? Has it been a big deal?
Before I answer that question, if I can just request everyone for a special round of applause for Pragnya. What an achiever. And if this is the future of India, India's future is damn good. And I saw this in our celebrations this year. There is much more confidence in the way we express ourselves. At times we are Indians, so it may not necessarily be quiet confidence. It may be a little rambunctious, but that's who we are. We are loud and free with our emotions. I like the fact that I thought the concept of Har Ghar Tiranga, a tricolor in every home. In some ways, it was a celebration of nationalism, which in Europe, because of the experiences of the Second World War, has become a demonized word. But there is a negative nationalism, there's a positive nationalism. Nationalism only means love for your country and no hatred for anyone else. It's a positive emotion, and that's what I think India is feeling. But I think in some ways, what Har Ghar Tiranga also represented was a democratization of the national symbols. Many don't know this, that India used to have a flag code actually. When we got our independence and we took on our constitution, the bureaucracy, the administration at that time came out with a flag code, which was actually very similar to the code that the British Raj had on a subject people of India. What that meant was the flag could only be displayed in government offices or in the offices of government people or those who are the elite, and it was illegal for a lay citizen to keep it without actual permission from the
Goodness.
bureau. Yeah, really, this was the
Wow.
rule, and there were all kinds of rules that had to be put up in the morning, taken off at night, it folded in a particular way, because this was the code that an elite ruling over a subject people would decide that you guys are idiots. We will tell you.
So a bit of a hangover from
Exactly.
British
So,
officialdom.
so it was like the white sahabs went and the brown sahabs took over. Now, what has happened in this with Har Ghar Tiranga is actually the flag code has been liberalized, right? Uh, there was a long court case that there's a reason why I'm telling you this full story. There was a guy called Jindal who was an industrialist, who was actually a Congress MP who broke this law consciously, put it up on his factory. He said, "I'm a patriot. I want to put up the flag." He was fined, threatened with jail. He fought a court case in the district court, the high court, and all the way up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court allowed him and liberalized the flag code a bit. This is, in fact, what has happened. So it is actually a democratization of our national symbol. That India is not just a state which an elite in Lutyens Delhi decides. India is all of ours,
How are we doing flying our
which
flag?
is a very good thing.
Flying our flag here. Is that okay?
Awesome. This is
Good.
completely legal. This is completely legal now.
Legal.
So there's a reason why I gave all this. This is a journey that has happened over the last 75 years. The nation is ours. It's not just a ruling dispensation, top bureaucrats, top the elite who will decide what our nation is. We, the common people, will decide. That's what, in my mind, this symbolizes, which is a very good thing.
That's a really lovely image. Whilst we're doing rounds of applause, I think a round of applause for this bouquet of flowers, which has been done beautifully by Jasu in obviously the colours of India, absolute masterpiece. Do you feel 75 years on? I mean, obviously the first kind of 50 years, in many ways, people were processing the trauma around partition and everything that came after that. People not necessarily able to talk about it or feel like celebrating what had been left behind. But that now, 75 years later, India is in a place where that can be laid to rest, and we really can now look forward and celebrate all these achievements that we saw being demonstrated.
Yeah, and I genuinely believe confidence is the greatest fuel. Uh, they may say that pride comes before a fall, but if you can't fall if you haven't risen in the first place. So excess pride is not good, but a certain amount of pride is good. It makes you rise. Um, India did a few very good things post our independence. We chose a relatively liberal constitution. The country which broke apart from us, Pakistan, chose religious obscurantism, and you saw they've committed suicide basically as a country. They have carried out the biggest genocide of the 20th century. If you see their minority population percentage, it has collapsed from 41 to now, both West Pakistan and East Pakistan. India, the minority population has gone up. So we did some good things. We chose the right values. On that, we must compliment our founding fathers. Some of the mistakes we made was in our economic policies. We chose socialism, which has an unparalleled track record of disaster wherever it has been tried. And of course, it caused disaster in India as well. But post 1991, we reformed and our economy started growing. And so, therefore, what you see now in India, I think in many ways, we had a second independence post 1991, where because unless you have success feeds more confidence. Right? There's a reason why so many Indians are more confident about talking about their culture now because we can stand up as an economy. We can stand up as there's a reason why we can do so well in Commonwealth because Commonwealth Games now because we can invest in sports. If you're staring at famine, you can't invest in sports as we were in the 1960s.
You mentioned in your book about modern India that within your lifetime, India has gone from having a GDP that was the same as General Motors,
Yeah.
one company in America, equivalent to the entire GDP of India, and now India has come up hugely.
We've gone ahead of the UK this year.
You've gone ahead of the UK. Okay,
yeah,
that's really not fair.
the
Is
last,
it?
the last time that happened was 150 years ago.
Really?
And at the rate we are growing, our per capita income and purchasing power parity will go ahead of every European country per capita. Every individual Indian income will go ahead of every European country in the next 20, 25 years. At the rate we are growing. The last time that happened was 900 years ago, when
Wow.
India was at the peak of its achievements. And again, sorry to come back to Pragnya, because she represents our youth. Look at her attitude. She wanted to do well in sports. She focused on it, and she is at the top of her game in triathlon. But in the Indian way, because you have to achieve in everything. So she'll do CA as well. She'll and one finds that in their generation, that uh, this capacity for hard work and expectation of overachievement from themselves is like almost like a given, right? And that is wonderful to see, because that drive is what creates success.
Wonderful. So really, India's star is rising, and it's not going to be many years before we're wanting visas to come and live in India. So if there's anything you can do to help with that.
You guys, you were. I've told you at times that you were perhaps Indian in your previous birth.
Yes.
I think now I must say you're Indian in this birth. Just come. No
Well, if you could
reasons.
organise it, I'd be very grateful. And there's a long queue of people behind me as well. India is going to be the place to be, clearly. And that's how it should be, because these things go in cycles, don't they? And, the British, and I sort of sit here representing the British, we plundered the wealth of India well and truly. And now it's time for that to flow back to India. And so, I delight in that.
But one
India
thing
is
which
being restored.
Sorry, but one thing which I can say as an Indian, we'll have the confidence to speak honestly about the British Raj now. But it has nothing to do with today's British. We are clear on that too.
Yeah.
So we'll speak honestly of the crimes that happen. It has nothing to do with today's British. This concept of historical guilt and community guilt, these are very dangerous concepts. My suggestion, they should be avoided.
Yeah, good. Amish reads a book pretty much a week. So he's one of the best read people you will ever meet. So we could let you run all evening, but we want to hear some other stories as well. Sister Jayanti, we haven't heard from you yet. You've had a busy week as well, tying these Rakhis, which you seem to have a whole collection going up your arm.
Yeah, no, these are actually religious strings, but this is my sister's Rakhi. I don't take my sister's Rakhi off.
It stays all year.
Yeah, it remains till it falls off.
Yeah, and it eventually falls off. Pragnya, you've got your Rakhi, which was tied on this afternoon. Gentlemen, can you just briefly explain for us what the significance of these Rakhis is and the festival of Raksha Bandhan? Because you've been sat pretty much for a week now tying these on people. What does it all mean?
In India, at least in modern times, how it's been interpreted is that if a sister ties this sacred thread on her brother's wrist, the brother makes a commitment to protect her at all times. So this word Raksha actually means protection. And one hand, the bondage, the bond of protection in which the sisters give that respect and love to the brother, and the brothers make it a commitment to bond. And yet, of course, my brother lives on a different continent, and I'm here. So how does he protect me? And in fact, at times I think he needs protection, not just me. And so, in fact, you know how there's a truth, and that through ages, that truth becomes forgotten, and the symbolism just remains. And so it actually represents the fact that God is the protector, and He protects all of us, men and women, brothers and sisters, but especially that connection with the divine is such that when we recognize we are His children, we are one family, then there's that bond of purity amongst all of us. A state in which there's nothing but pure vision, pure attitude, pure consciousness, and an exchange in which there's love and respect with everyone. And that's the reality of this festival, the reminder of being one family that's held together in the bond of God's love and purity. And so when we celebrate this, it's people of all ages, all backgrounds, men and women who come together. And so it's been around 1,800 people who had this thread tied over the last week at the center.
I'm 1801.
Probably.
It's very special, and who wouldn't want to be protected by a sacred thread and held in that protection? It's a beautiful thing to do. So Pragnya, thank you so much for staying on after the Commonwealth Games to be with us this evening. It's such a delight to have you here. How were your games? How did it go?
The games were wonderful, and this was the first time that triathlon was participating. Like India was participating in triathlon at the games. So back home, everyone was excited. The triathlon community is a small community in India, so everyone was excited that we are going to be part of such big games. And the four of us who came here to participate in the games, it was an experience because the world champions are the best people in the world in the game are from the Commonwealth nations. So interacting with them, meeting them, and competing with them in the same race, it was quite an experience and a very big learning experience. I think from here we take back a lot of experience which will help us to move forward.
So you, in a way, you're a woman flying the flag for India, flying the flag for the triathlon discipline. Is it getting more followers in India? Are you getting noticed now?
Yes, I think so. And I think with some international success, that will only grow. So, right now in India, a lot of people are taking to fitness and triathlon, being as challenging as it invites a lot of people to take up the challenge. But Ironman as a concept is much more popular than Olympic distance or sprint distance triathlon is in India. So, but gradually, I think a lot of youngsters are getting attracted to this sport as it has its own challenges, getting roads to cycle on, finding open waters to swim in. So I think it'll still take some time before triathlon will be mainstream sport as such.
Mm.
And like with badminton and table tennis, you've seen that when you have someone to look up to who has some international success, be it at Olympics or the World Championships, then people do follow it because then they feel that if she can, why can't I?
So the
Ironman.
the Ironman event is kind of long distance and
Yes.
endurance, so
Yes.
quite a different thing.
Yes.
Whereas you're very fast over shorter
Right.
distances. Now you mentioned people to look up to. You haven't really had anyone to look up to. You're the first woman to do this.
In the triathlon space, yes, but there are other women athletes from India. Like Saina Mirza, when she started off playing tennis, there was no one that she had to look up to, and she has paved her way on her own. Then Saina Nehwal in badminton, similarly Mary Kom in boxing. So there has been a lot of string of women in sports in general, maybe not particularly in triathlon that I've had a role model in, but there are pretty some women who are getting into the sporting arena and getting noticed and getting laurels for the country.
Now I'm sure you must get asked this question a lot, but you are a qualified chartered accountant. Only 3% of people who sit their accountancy exams pass. 3%, and you're one of them. You could have a whole. It's a real achievement, and you could have a really successful career. You could be making a fortune as an accountant, but you've chosen to concentrate on this. What is it about being an athlete that is so appealing to you?
I think it's just the calling. I'm not sure what it is, but it's fun. The work that I do, it is fun for me, and I just like it. Like I get up and I want to train most of the days. Yes. So yeah, and I'm a very competitive person when it comes to competition. So I think I just enjoy and as a child growing up, being a national level swimmer, I always had this that, I wanted to make it big in swimming. I couldn't make it that big in swimming, so I changed my sport. But I want to make it big in sports. Yes. So yeah, I think it was just a calling, and like we say that passion fuels you. So I think it's my passion, and I'm fortunate enough to get opportunities to make it my profession. So yes.
So you do
Yeah.
still have a consultancy practice. So you're earning enough money to pay your bills through your chartered accountancy, but only enough to pay your bills. This is where your focus is. And you mentioned about training, and I think one of the messages I love about your story is your passion for what you do, because what that fuels you to achieve in your life is huge. And I think it's a real thing for each one of us. You know, if we can find something to be as passionate about as Pragnya is, what could we achieve in our lives? Because Pragnya, you train 7 days a week. You get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. You have to start your training at 4:30 before there's too much traffic on the roads, and you go out on your bike, and your dad comes with you on his motorbike, and you are there 7 days a week, and then the pool training, and then the running and everything. I mean, wow, which of us is, I'm on a spiritual path, but, do I do 6 hours training a day? Probably not. What kind of challenges have you faced, though, as a woman doing this? And as a young woman in India going out wearing figure hugging lycra, cycling costume, and you've got short hair and you're not married and you're not kind of doing things the traditional way.
Yeah.
What kind of opposition have you had?
The society in general, this is my experience, that in the society is not very supportive of the fact that you try to do something that is out of the blue, that is something new that they haven't seen. It is not because they don't want to support you, but it is just because I assume that they are afraid that you might fail. So they're not supportive at the beginning, but as they see you progress, get more success, they become supportive. Having said that, I've faced quite some challenges. So, like in India, it isn't common for a girl to go wearing short clothes, figure hugging clothes, or to cycle in the morning when it's dark. So there have been instances where people have followed me. There have been catcalls and stuff like that. But I think I've got used to it, and that's not a very happy place to be in because getting used to such kind of things. But and then I've also faced, I've had accidents on the road, and there've been people who have gathered after the accident, and they've been commenting on my clothing rather than trying to help me out. So yeah, so it's been quite some ride, but I think gradually India is developing and there are many more female athletes in cycling, running, or swimming coming up. So I think we'll get there.
You're laughing. You will definitely get there. I know you will, because you have a determination that is like a fire that burns within you, and you're going to make this happen. And I love the way that you make an opportunity out of adversity, because you were in Australia when the pandemic hit. You'd gone for a short visit and you ended up staying for 18 months because you couldn't leave the country, and yet you put that time to such good use.
Yes, I think initially I got stuck there, and then I realized that the situation back home was worse than what it was in Australia. And in Australia, I could still go out practice, even though the pools were closed. There was sea, I could swim in, and I could cycle around, and I could run. So I think, looking back in retrospect, I think it was a good thing that happened out of the blue. I think things fell into place because I could see that it improved my performance, and to a certain level that I could get qualified for the Commonwealth. So I think things work out the way they have to. You have to struggle a bit. There are more challenges in the beginning, and then sort of with the hard work, with the kind of support group that you have, things work out.
And you also used the opportunity in lockdown to learn meditation.
Yes, I did. Yes, so initially when the lockdowns happened, the plans, like for everyone, my plans got swayed away, and I was like, okay, I don't have any competitions coming up. What am I here for? And I was not at mental peace, and that is when someone suggested to me that why don't you try meditation, and I did try guided meditation at first, and then it took me 2 3 months to get used to the meditation, and then I could do it on my own. So I took to meditation, and that really helped me.
Sister Jayanti, do you think Pragnya has the qualities necessary to make a good meditator?
I think we can give her a try.
It's amazing. Amish, what do you feel listening to Pragnya's story?
This, so much of success is actually just in the attitude of the individual. see the problems and let them weigh you down, or like like she did. She was stuck in Australia. She didn't get into a negative spiral. She said, "Okay, I can use this," right? And actually, trained hard and well out there. Uh, that's the point I was making. That one sees this in so many young Indians today. I have a nephew her age who has that same attitude. He had an accident. He didn't get into a negative spiral. He sprung out of it. Right? And it's a wonderful thing that one sees in their generation. There's a term that is used in India of an apadame afsar, wherein opportunity in a problem. There's one of the things our Prime Minister used, and one sees that in practice with this generation. That there is a problem, you can either allow yourself to drown under it or fight it. Because I mean, who doesn't have problems?
Mhm. We talked about the new India, the looking forward India, and embracing the dynamism that is there and all the talent and everything. But Sister Jayanti, when we look at the kind of the world picture, I think we can't get too carried away that the whole world is riding on the crest of this wave of upward motion, because we are living through critical times in history, and we're seeing a situation that we have never lived through before. How do we bring this spirit of optimism, of driving through to a future vision against the backdrop of everything that we see happening in the world now?
In fact, there are two things that are going on simultaneously. And one is all the negativity, and you're seeing that downward descent of negativity because of that. And then on the other side, you're seeing the rising humanity. You are seeing the awareness growing, consciousness growing, and people beginning to recognize that there is a thread of connection amongst all human beings. The focus on values of vision, the focus on plant-based diet, many different things are happening in public places, no smoking. Now, all that has happened in a relatively short space of time. Holistic health has come into the picture. So just keep counting and you'll see many different things. So a lot of it is from India, but also now you see spots, little oases in every single continent. And even, I don't mention names, but even in countries that normally would not accept things like yoga, yet never mind they call it a sport, never mind they call it exercise, but yoga has now come to everyone's language across the world. So I see that ascending energy of goodness is also rising. And I believe deeply that the goodness of the human spirit is there absolutely in every single individual. And so what meditation is doing is allowing people to tap into that inner goodness. And I see that as the future. That if this goodness is now beginning to come up in view, when anything new starts, you have, whether it's trousers that are slender at the bottom or trousers that are bell-shaped to the bottom, whatever it is.
Your flares or your drain pipes.
That's it. I don't even know the language, you see. I see that I don't know the language.
Actually, they don't call them drain pipes anymore. That shows how old I am. They now call them straights. Straights, yeah.
So it starts with a few people here and there, and then suddenly you realize that it's worldwide, everywhere. And so anything new that begins, it begins small, and it's a handful of people, it's a minority. But as things move, then that minority idea, whether it's philosophy or whether it's spirituality or fashion, but that minority idea reaches a critical point and it becomes a majority accepted idea. And so I see that definitely awareness of introspection, awareness of self-transformation, self-awareness, all of these things are now part of everybody's vocabulary. We're talking about it. I met somebody the other day, yesterday in fact, a couple who'd come from Israel to attend a lecture, or it was actually a workshop that was held over a few days, and the whole theme was self-awareness. And so they came they're not people who are just sitting on the backside. They're very busy people. But again, because this guy was happened to be in London, so he came to attend this, and he said there were over 2,000 people there. So these things are happening now. There's definitely a rising awareness that we can look at and be part of if we wish to, and also actually accelerate and move further along. So first is to see it, then is to be part of it, and then further is to actually be instruments to move it forward so that it speeds up even further. And I think that's what this program's about.
And taking inspiration again from Pragnya's training, there has to be a level of determination to break with the pattern of what has gone before, and to be prepared to stand out and to swim against the tide, perhaps, in order to bring about a new change. And in the work that you're doing, you're trying to bring about a global transformation. You know, it's not a small task, and yet you're finding new ways of being in the world, new ways of living, and believing that those changes are what will make a difference. And I wonder whether sometimes you have to hit the rock bottom for things to get really bad before that catalyst for change springs into action.
Um, they say that the darkest hour of the night comes just before the dawn. And so I think that that's what's happening to humanity. That we're in a very, very dark period in which you see war happening in a way that wasn't meant. And there was a time they would say that war is out there on the battlefield, but that changed at some point in the 20th century. But today it's a very conscious problem, and I'm not talking about one country. I'm talking about several places where we keep getting the news that this is happening. Hospitals are being bombed, children's homes are being bombed, things like this. Battle is involved in one part of the country. It's just, here in London, we had a situation where someone drove into the House of Parliament. So where is the enemy? What is going on? And in fact, I wouldn't say that the person driving that vehicle was the enemy. I'd say it's the evil forces of lust and greed and anger and ego and attachment that are the real enemies. And this is what's been described in the Gita, the scripture of India, Srimad Bhagavad Gita. It states that these negative forces are the enemy of humanity. And then it also says the soul itself can be its best friend or its worst enemy. You can choose which way to go. And so I'm thinking that this is now that period when we'll see all of this happen. It is the darkest hour before the dawn. And I actually think that because we see the rising humanity, the dawn has actually broken. I think we're already in a different era. And so those who recognize that and are part of that are experiencing a very different type of feeling. Really seeing that, for example, myself, when I came back from India in 1969, and the only other Raj Yogi I knew was my mother, and there was nobody else around. At that time, Hatha Yoga had just started. The word meditation had just started. Vegetarian diet had just started. It was the beginning of something new happening. Today, vegetarian diet is so common. In those days, I think it was only one organization that started vegetarian restaurants, but today it's everywhere. So just in 50 years, I've seen such a huge change of consciousness that I know for a fact that doctors will recommend meditation to relieve stress. Doctors will say, you have to find ways to relax. Meditation is a good way to do that. It's now become mainstream. And so, yes, definitely, it's now a bright future that's ahead. And although we're seeing all the things of darkness, certainly those who have that inner vision open, they're not stuck to that, they're not in bondage to that, but they're seeing something beautiful ahead and they're moving towards that.
So, with those concepts of yoga, meditation, vegetarianism, holistic living, were just beginning 50 years ago and that they're now mainstream. What are you seeding now to become the mainstream in the future? What would be your catalyst seed change that you would like to see humanity make?
There's a beautiful expression that comes within the Gita, and that is Shanti Swadharma. That peace is your original religion of self. Now, if we could embrace that and experience it and make it our reality of our lives, that's it. What else do we want? So I think that more and more people are aware that peace is not just a question of treaties between countries that can be broken within a day or even hours after signing. Um, Peace is something that is within, and you can discover it. You give yourself that time and space and sit in silence and connect with yourself. I think that's what Pragnya must have discovered when the Lord said. And so that state where we turn inwards and we start experiencing this, I think that as we do this, we together create a better world, world of peace.
So that's the evolutionary step we need to take, really, is to realize the power within our own minds to bring about peace in this world. Amish, where do you stand on this? Because Sister Jayanti is talking about the references in the Gita that when there is irreligiousness and unrighteousness, then I will come and bring about a transformation. Do you accept that we are living through those dark times now? Because you're such an optimist. I wonder whether you partly don't look at that or you don't engage with that, or do you see us as going through that period in the Gita that was talked about?
Look, this is a time of intense change. A lot of it negative. In our in our Vedic way, it is told that whenever an age changes, Satyuk to Treta, Treta to Dwapar, Dwapar to-
So
there's
you're talking about the different
the
ages,
different ages.
the
There's a lot
cycle
of
of time.
there is chaos at the change of an age. Perhaps they're passing through that. If you the war, the pandemic, the massive impact on food and energy prices across the thing. Each one of these crises are once in a lifetime crisis, and we've got all of them happening within 2 3 years. This is insane. There's almost a feeling that God knows what's going to happen next. Right? Um, I'm sure many are aware. Europe is passing through one of the most severe droughts in decades. The Rhine River doesn't have enough water for ship trade, for certain kinds of ship trade in Germany. These are crazy things that are happening all together at the same time. Now, an optimist doesn't mean that you don't see the chaos that's happening. The optimist in you will see, okay, there's chaos that's happening, which means there's a lot of change, which means there are opportunities, which means those of us who work hard can build our ourselves, our communities, our nation. There's an ancient Chinese, not a few Chinese, because of the pandemic, sorry. But there's an ancient Chinese which is a curse and a blessing, which is may you be born in exciting times, right? Because that is seen as a curse and a blessing, because it means that things are changing dramatically, so you may be suffering. It may also mean that if you're actually, you have that inner grit, you have that ability to compete, to fight, you can actually change things dramatically for your family, for your community, for your country. Uh, and that is true. Look, if there's no change happening, then a country which is at the bottom cannot rise. But if there is a change happening, then the community or country can rise. You have to have that grit and that determination and that optimistic attitude that yeah, there's a challenge. I need to fight this. And as she did, I could tell you, I've spoken about it a few times. I had a very difficult personal period over the last 5 6 years. I don't speak about it too much, but I mean the career has done well. But there was this period. Uh, One can either drown from it, surrender, or one can say, okay, this is happening to make me stronger. And how do I battle what there is to battle, suffer what there is to suffer, but make sure I get up the next day and I fight what there is to fight. To me, that was also the message of Gita, that keep peace within, but as Lord Krishna tells Arjun, if you have to fight, you have to fight.
Sister Jayanti, Amish there is referring to the different ages. And for those of us that have grown up with Western thinking, there is this sense of time being a linear line. So it begins with the Big Bang and continues until presumably another Big Bang. But what's happened in India is you've joined those two bangs together and made one bang and made a straight line into a circle. And there's this idea of time actually being cyclic. And so to try and set the context for what we're seeing in the world in terms of that bigger picture of the cycle of time is quite helpful to frame it in terms of moving through this age of darkness, like the four seasons, this would be the winter, but what's coming next is the spring. Could you just say a few words about your understanding of that and the reality of that for what is happening in the world now?
The way Raji sees it is that we're now at the end of one cycle, and we described as what you call Kali Yuga, the Iron Age. And between the Iron Age and the Golden Age is this period of transition. And we're going through that transition, which is uncertain times, a lot of upheaval, strange things happening that you could never have imagined could happen in the way that they are. But this period of uncertainty and transition and all that upheaval is actually the preparation for the transformation of the inner being for the soul. And in fact, if you use these terms in the way we describe them in English as golden, silver, copper, and iron age, so Satyug, the age of truth, the golden age, right down to Kali Yuga, the iron age, and where gold, if you keep it out in the open, air, wind, water, nothing will change it. It will still remain beautiful and sparkling. And contrast that with the Iron Age and anything that's iron, and you expose it to the elements, and it's going to get rusty. And not just rusty, it's going to be poison. And so that's the condition of the soul at this moment. That transition period is described as the Diamond Age. So yes, it's very exciting and you can do a lot, but there's also all the fear and unrest that we see that's happening there. And so most people understand that there is this cycle, but I think where they don't join the dots is that they don't realize that now is the end of Kali Yuga. They think Kali Yuga is going to carry on for another 40,000 years, while climate change science tells us it's not possible. It's now very, very difficult to reverse the clock and say, carry on for another 40,000 years. The resources of the earth have all been used, and we are running out of water very, very soon. The glaciers are melting, and within a short space of time, there will be billions without water. Now, coming to carry on like this is not a possibility. And so they're doing that. And then they would realize that there's another phase beyond that, which is Satyug, the golden age, and that we're on that threshold. And what we have to do now is prepare ourselves for that world. Peace is one quality, but love and truth and respect, humility, these are the qualities that are there within the soul. That in silence and contemplation, you can emerge those qualities and express them. And there you go. You have the beginning of the golden age.
A very beautiful unfolding and a wonderful model to keep in your mind when we witness what is happening in the world. Because as you say, these once in a generation events seem to be happening with alarming regularity. And, we just, since we last were together, have been through this intense heat wave and then torrential downpour. It is extraordinary times, and the leaves are all falling off the tree already, and it's the middle of August.
Makes no sense.
it's upside down and topsy turvy,
God knows what's happening.
which is why this model of returning to a future age is so inspiring. And I think for many of us, we do in a way draw our inspiration from India, because India had the Gita, which was the original sacred text that inspired so much of the wisdom in the other traditions. And as India's star rises now, we're going to once again be looking to India. And Gandhi talked about wanting to establish God's kingdom. Um, that's quite in a way, it's quite a mission for India to take on this vision of building a positive world. Is that something that you see India embracing?
I think so, yeah. And I think there is, at least the way I think we Indians see it, there's something positive to be learned from all cultures. Uh, you know, uh, Western science and the rational approach, there's a lot to be learned from it. It was the most successful culture of the last 3 4 centuries. Chinese Confucianism and the stability, calmness that it gives, there's a lot to be learned from that. Our Indian approach of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, of seeing the world as one family, there's a lot to be learned from that. But there's a lovely Indian line that let noble thoughts come to me from all directions. Because we believe that Goddess Saraswati, who is the goddess of knowledge, can bless anyone. She doesn't have to bless only an Indian, she can bless anyone. And if she has blessed someone, it's in our selfish interest to learn that knowledge and share it. And if we can have that kind of attitude, that there's something to be learned from everyone, uh, we'll actually be in a better place. And we could perhaps find ways to work together in an atmosphere where the world is going to go through a lot of chaos. Much of it could be outside of human hands. Right? I mean, you could say yes, war has been caused by us, but a drought coming out of the globe. In India, parts that were normally had lower rain have had massive floods this year, and UP, Bihar, West Bengal, which used to normally have very high rains, have received very little rain this year. It's really crazy. What's happening? Uh, a lot of this are global problems. We can work better if we can find ways to. Uh, we'll solve our problems if we can find ways to work together. And the best way to do that is to respect differences, but try and find common ground where we can to help each other. I think that's what Vasudev Kutumbakam, our philosophy will translate it to. In a family, the parents don't say that every single child has to be exactly the same. There are four of us in my family, four siblings. All four of us are different. I have a twin brother. Two of us are actually quite different. But as long as all four of us become the best that we can be, we become a stronger family. And as long as we love each other, support each other, that works. Right? It's not that everyone has to follow the same one truth, or everyone has to be exactly similar. No, that is not possible.
That's a very positive
Find
message.
ways to come together, especially in a time of crisis. This is clearly there are changes happening everywhere.
A
Things
time
beyond human control.
of breaking down, but also breaking through
Exactly.
to new ways of being. I mean, Pragnya, as your career progresses and you become more a public figure, you're going to be in a position of being a role model for other athletes coming along, but also for other women. What do you feel you would like to use your position when that happens to communicate to the world? Do you have a sense of what you would like to achieve with your position?
I think I would want to send a message that as women, we can do whatever we want to. And it's not limited to a certain profession or certain kind of thinking. It is about your own choice. It should be your choice. If someone wants to be a housewife, there's nothing wrong in that. But it has to be their choice to do so. So I think, so they should have the choice to make whatever decisions they want in their lives. So I think I want that to go around. And then also the fact that being a professionally qualified individual does not bound you to just follow that profession. You can explore around and still pursue your passion along with your profession. So it does not have to be mutually exclusive. It could go hand in hand. So that is something I'm still promoting right now, because in my chartered accountancy community, I am quite well known, and I'm invited for talks, especially to students. And as you mentioned, that the chartered accountant examination is not the easiest, so there's a lot of failures that happen, and a lot of people are looking for motivation through those failures to take them through. And I just want to say that, in when you fail, it's not the pleasant feeling. It's not a pleasant feeling. But as a sports person, I've lost more matches, more tournaments than I've won. So, failing over and over again, you just get used to it, and it is okay. If you don't fail, you don't learn a lot of things that you learn when you fail, and then you work harder and you come back stronger. And that is what the sportsman spirit, we all talk about having the sportsman spirit. Sportsman spirit is nothing but when you lose gracefully, and when you win humbly. So that is all. And you can be happy when you lose. I remember that I was, I think, in third grade when I participated in the state championship for the very first time. And I came last in all the four events that I took part in, and I came last by miles. And I still had, a smile on my face when I met my mom, and I was like, okay, so I competed in the state championship. I was so happy as a child. So I think I get sad when I lose, but I also learn. I know that as a sports person, there'll be always events where you succeed, you win a competition, you go to the next level, and you will meet people who are better than you, and so you lose. Then you work harder, and then you become better, and then you go to another competition, you'll meet people who are better than you again lose. So it's an ongoing process. So I think I want to send that kind of message, that losing or failing in life is necessary and it is important, but you can always work harder and come back stronger and succeed.
Wow.
What a lovely way to put it. Because, if I can, her thoughts in one word, if you're winning all the time, you're not playing big enough.
Yeah.
So raise your game and then compete with people who are better than you. That's how you grow.
Yeah.
What a lovely attitude.
Lovely. And you two have got something in common as well with your financial backgrounds that you've walked away from, both of you.
Yes, I was a banker.
You were a banker for 13 years.
And I was also in life insurance. Doubly sorry.
Oh, I didn't know that one.
It paid well.
But you found your passion.
Yeah.
And look what you're doing with your life now. You're making documentaries about Indian wisdom and philosophy, and speaking to an entire generation of new people and bringing those stories of India alive for them. Pragnya as well. I mean, she could earn money as a chartered accountant. She's being an athlete. And her passion is for that. Sister Jayanti, she could have been anything she wanted to be.
But she's everything.
Yes.
That's very beautiful. But, it's about finding your passion. And that's what the world needs at this time. It needs people to be passionate about making a difference and making a change and bringing about this. We deserve a better world than the one we're living in at the moment. And it's through people like this that I really feel hope and inspiration that we will get there. Now, there must be some questions bubbling in the minds of our lovely audience here at the Nehru Centre. And we do have a tradition of including you in the conversation. So if anyone would like to put their hand up, and we have a roving mic that we can bring to you, if you'd like to ask any questions of our panelists this evening, that would be great. Yeah, we've got a question down here at the front. If we could have the microphone here, thank you. If you'd like to just say your name and where you're from as well, that would be great.
Hi there, my name's Tushar. And my background is mostly in media. It was great to hear this almost like intergenerational conversation and experiences and insights. And maybe a question for all of you. What do you think the older generation can share, which is wisdom, for the younger generation? And also, what do you think is wisdom that the younger generation can share to the older generation?
I'm the one with the greyest hair. Okay, so I'd like to share firstly what we can learn from the young generation. Their enthusiasm and their vision that yes, anything and everything is possible. That's beautiful. It really is. And the fact that you've been able to cross many barriers and boundaries, and that's an inspiration to everyone also. And from my side, I just feel that life has given me such a huge amount of experience in so many different ways. And yes, when I sit with a younger person, I pull out those stories from my awareness and my memory and I share those. And the things that I experienced with those who are older than me, who have now passed on, they've now become legends. They've become amazing things that continue to inspire me today. But when I share them with younger people, they want to hear more. They want to hear more because they say, were these real people? You know, people like the dadis. Are you talking about human beings? And I say, yes, flesh, blood, and bones. And they did all of this. So, yes, there's a lot of exchange that can happen in a beautiful way.
I think it's a lovely point because we all of us stand on the shoulders of the generations that have gone before. And it was just this morning, Pragnya, that we discovered that in 1952, there were 4 women from India who competed in the Helsinki Olympics. And one of them was a hurdler.
Yes, and 2 of them in swimming.
And 2 of them in swimming.
Yeah.
So if you can imagine how hard it is for Pragnya in 2022 to be putting on a swimming costume and the reaction that she gets from her extended family, imagine what it would have been back then. But it's because of them, in a way, that you're now doing what you're doing. So each generation does pave a way, doesn't it, for what comes behind.
And like Sister Jayanti mentioned, like for me, getting knowledge and experience that the older generation has and passing it on to our generation. And I also feel that our generation lacks the calmness of mind that is required. So if the older generation could tell us the tricks, so I think that would really be helpful. So I think, yes, we definitely require your guidance in terms of the experiences that you have accumulated through, you know, the knowledge and the wisdom that you have. So I think that would be very useful to our generation.
I think worth mentioning that you look incredibly young, but you're not actually quite as young as you look. Pragnya had someone last week ask her where her mum and dad were and was she okay on her own. And she's like, I'm an adult. You're in your late, not late 20s, but your mid to late 20s.
Yes. Yeah.
So, you know, your wisdom years are not there yet, but they're not so far around the corner. But, you know, clearly drawing on that wisdom of what went before. Amish, I've heard you talk about, in a way, your envy for the young generation because they can have an idea to do something and just do it because it's the age where anything is possible.
Yeah, it's the energy. I think you know, the younger generation has energy, and the older generation has the wisdom of experience. You know, and one could always think that if I had this wisdom, I would have done something differently 20 years back. But maybe I would have not had the energy to do, you know, what I did. Maybe this is the circle of life. There's this, you know, a cricketer turned comic called Navjot Sidhu who said something which was surprisingly wise because he said it as a comic. He said that the wisdom of experience is the comb that life gives you once you've gone bald. But the key thing is then that you can share that comb with someone who has hair. And I think maybe that's the way, you know, the interaction should take place. That there is wisdom that comes just out of having lived longer and going through experiences. And we can share that wisdom with those who are younger. And those who are young, they have energy that those of us who are old don't have, right? So they can do things that will tire us out. They can work much harder than we can. They have much greater reserves than we have. And the partnership, I mean, sometimes I fear in the West, there's like a cult of the youth where even very old people, I'm sorry, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think at times behave inappropriately because they're desperately trying to be youthful. You're old. I mean, there's a benefit of Being old, there's a benefit of being young. If we can have a partnership, actually we can create a better world, because there are things that we get as older people, and there are things that only a younger person can have.
I mean, that's very much been the intention with your book series, is to impart some of that wisdom. And that's in a way been the intention of this series of conversations, is to really look at the wisdom heritage that we have and how we can use that. So Trusha, thank you so much for that question. Another hand that we have just here, please. Thank you. Can you just say your name and where you're from?
Yeah, sure. Oops.
It's not on. No, it isn't. My name's Chloe. I'm from London. I'm also a professional athlete as well and compete in Olympic wrestling. And I was at the Commonwealth Games recently.
Oh, wow. Applause.
Wow. But even though there's that whole stigma around England and athletes, there's funding, this and that, wrestling doesn't get zero funding in this country. And I've had to self-fund for the last 15 years. But also there's little accessibility to training partners and so on. So I've always had to keep training with men and so on, and not really got to be able to achieve my potential because of that. So the question to Pragnya is that because there's little accessibility, do you have to train with men a lot as well? And how does that make you feel? Does it challenge you? What challenges come with that lack of accessibility? Because me, myself, as I say, it's not been an easy journey, but what's the biggest challenges you faced within the training and so on?
Well, another trailblazer here this evening, which is amazing. And Pragnya, you were telling me earlier that there was a big Bollywood film about an Indian wrestler.
Yes.
Who made it cool to be athletic and sporting.
Yes.
And have short hair.
Short hairs, yeah. That really affected my life, because to a positive extent, because now people, when they see me, they're like, okay, and associate that I'm a girl, they're like, okay, she must be in sports because she has short hair. So the movie that she's talking about is Dangal. So that was about an Indian wrestler going big. She became the Commonwealth gold medalist and then qualified for the Olympics. So yes, in a way, like she mentioned, it has been difficult because triathlon is comparatively a new sport for India, and there are a lot of resources that are not available. For example, I am a very short-heighted person. So getting my size of cycle, the racing cycle that we have, I don't get it in India. So I have to purchase it outside. So I purchased it from the UK, and I have the spare parts, the parts that wear and tear. I don't get any in India. So I have to always, when I'm traveling in here, right now also I'm taking back like 3 pairs of tubes, 3 pairs of tires, because I won't get any in India. So, because it's comparatively a new sport.
And they're not imagining that women are going to need a bike like that.
Yes.
Which is why they don't have them.
Yeah. In general, Indian people are not that tall. So even boys would require that kind of cycle, but they don't have it. And then the resources like, having a good coach. We don't have a world-class coach in India for triathlon. So yes, there are limitations. I have to train with boys because not many girls have taken up the sport in India. So it makes me feel sad about the situation to a certain extent, but like we discussed that when there are downfalls, you have to find opportunities so that you can come up with something new, something that others could follow on. So if I make it big in the sport, I think the facilities will be available in India. As well as about the funding, triathlon is not a big sport in India, so we don't get as much as funding as we would like. For tournaments, for competitions, we always have to, go at the last moment, catch the last flight, be there on it just in time to race. Sometimes that doesn't happen, but yes. So there are difficulties, and especially with something that India hasn't been good at. Like if now we talk about BCCI, it's the richest sports body in the world. So cricket does not have those kinds of things that another sport would have. And like badminton, now it's coming up. So something similar will happen with other sports, but it is only a matter of time.
Because at the moment it's your dad who's your coach.
Yes.
But you're hoping as a result of this trip to the UK that you might have a new coach.
A better coach.
Which will make all the difference.
Yes.
Which is very exciting. I mean, I can imagine cycling and swimming alongside the boys is one thing, but wrestling a boy, that's something else completely. So hats off to you for persisting, and I hope your dream is there for you waiting, and every success to you. Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I think we've got time for a last question, if there is anyone.
Right.
Thank you.
To what you just said about, sharing the wisdom, but I would just like to add one thing is for certain: the younger generation is so good at technology, and if that technology and thing is used to spread the wisdom of I think they can be very useful partnership.
Right.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
But sorry.
Just to say that there is a great partnership that's evolving with social media, and that's handled by all the young people and the seniors, grey-haired ones.
I have a book launch coming up in October, and there's some book promotions one has to do on Instagram, and I'm gonna take credit. So my social media agency, my publisher social media agency in India, so they're youngsters. They send me training videos. Okay, Amish, this is how you make a story. Press this button. And the camera will turn around. Then say something. Then press this. It'll go as a reel.
Not to be underestimated. In fact, Pragnya, you're only here because of social media and making a connection through LinkedIn with someone, which is how we came to invite Pragnya. So it's a marriage made in heaven, the wisdom of the elders and the enthusiasm and expertise of the young people. And really to finish on that note of optimism, that we do have everything it takes to bring this world into a new era. We do have it all, Sister Jayanti, isn't that right?
Absolutely. All the ingredients are there within every human soul. Never mind all the ingredients outside, because social media is doing a fantastic job in terms of sharing information of spirituality. There are many, many people who now have come into spirituality, in particular through the last couple of years through the pandemic, because of social media or coming online with lectures and talks and things. So, but the combination is perfect. All the ingredients that are there within the human spirit and the science and technology that exists out there, put them together and you have a recipe for a better world.
And also, it's the young generation who are inheriting the world, and it's going to be their future. So, they have an extra motivation to make a difference, and make a difference they are. I think the young people are blazing the trail in so many ways.
Absolutely. There's this, I think it was Milan Kundera, I could be mistaken. I think it was Milan Kundera who said that civilization is not just, a partnership between those of us who are living. It's actually a partnership between those who died before us and those who are going to be born much later. It's a partnership across times. If you think about it that way, and the way you live, what you do with the world, you'll work a little differently. Because you've inherited something from those who came before you. You have to make sure you pass it on in reasonably good conditions.
Well, we're working on that one, aren't we? It's a work in progress, I think we can say. We're going to close with a meditation now. But before I do, I just want to thank all of you so much for again sharing your wisdom. And it's one of the things that people have said to me that they've really enjoyed about these sessions is, there's so much kind of rubbish that is put out there in the media, in the world today, to find somewhere where you can talk about these issues of spirituality and things that are close to the heart. It's been a really rich exchange over these last 3 months. So thank you all so much. So Sister Jayanti, if we could invite you again to close our time together with a meditation and a forwards-looking inspiration for the hope we need to embrace the future. Thank you.
reflecting on the things we've been talking about, going within, finding that space of stillness within the self, I begin to explore what lies inside my own inner world. Not only do I wish for peace, but actually it is there within the soul. Giving myself time and space, I realize that there is peace within, and I simply have to become aware of it. In my original state of being, I am a being of peace. And peace opens the door. I discover love that is part of the original being that I am. I am a being of peace and love. And there within the soul, there lies truth. There is truth in my inner world. I had forgotten myself, and I had forgotten how to access these treasures. And just simply becoming aware of these, and they start manifesting in my words and my actions. And in this awareness of inner peace, I can feel the presence of the divine, the source of peace, of love, of truth. The being who is the benefactor, the being who is Shiva, the being who is the source of light, of love, of joy. As I connect with the divine, I receive the power, the strength to actually now let go of the negativity that was causing pain and sorrow. And I move towards the goodness that my parent is showing me. And as we come together and the power of goodness is being applied in our lives, we move towards a better world. God's power and truth and our transformation makes a better world possible. And in this awareness of the divine, we look towards that world of peace, of love, of truth, joy, and purity. I hold this vision, but I also hold the responsibility of making it happen. Om Shanti.
Thank you so much, Sister Jayanti, Amish, and to our sweet, sparkling athletic star, Pragnya. And a special thanks as well to the teams that have been working these last months, both from the Nehru Centre, the administration team, and from the Brahma Kumaris, the administration team. You know who you are. Many, many thanks for everything you have done to bring us all together so beautifully for these very special occasions. Thank you to all of you as well for coming and being here. Post-COVID, we haven't got over the novelty of just physically being together again, so that has been really special. And thanks to everyone as well for joining us online. I'm sure there will be another time. I don't yet know when that will be, but until then, go well, keep your passion shining bright, and follow your dreams with the same determination as we have been hearing from our panelists this evening. And a new and beautiful world will surely be ours. Until that next time, take good care. Good night and Om Shanti.